Hi, welcome. Good morning, bonjour. I'm Cara DeGrange, Ontario Greens candidate for this great riding of Spadina Fort York. It's so great to have Ontario Greens leader Mike Schreiner with us today for this important announcement. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are addressing you from the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, Seneca, Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Treaty 13 lands of the Mississauga of the First Credit Nation. Please welcome Leader of the Ontario Greens, Mike Schreiner.
Yeah, maybe just lift that a little bit if you could. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Kara. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today on what is a pretty cool spring morning, I'll have to say. It's great to be in downtown Toronto as part of my Stop the Sprawl tour for this important announcement. Ontario Greens are serious about addressing the affordability concerns the people of Ontario have. We know it's getting more and more expensive to own a home and pay the bills in communities all across Ontario. And we know that the housing affordability crisis is in part being driven by deep-pocketed speculators that are buying up properties in unprecedented numbers. In fact, nearly 1/3 of housing wealth in this province is held by multiple property owners. Ontario Greens understand how hard it is for young families in particular to be able to afford to buy a home in the community they love and the community they live in. And we have real solutions to help address the affordability crisis they face. And so that's why today I'm proud to announce that the Ontario Greens will make housing more affordable for first-time home buyers by cracking down on wealthy speculators through the introduction of a multiple home speculation tax. This tax will only apply to new purchases of homes for domestic, individual, or corporate buyers who already own 2 or more homes or condominium units. It's time to level the playing field and pull back the red carpet that Doug Ford has rolled out for wealthy speculators so first-time home buyers can have a chance. Young professionals and young families are wondering if they'll ever be able to afford to own a home. We know that Doug Ford has allowed speculation to run out of control, and this is forcing young families to move further and further away from the communities they love and further away from where they work just to be able to find a place that they can afford. This is leading to challenges in their lives, making their lives more expensive, and driving up urban sprawl and climate pollution. And so that's why the Ontario Greens are absolutely committed to stopping the sprawl and building livable, affordable, connected communities where young people can realize the dream of owning a home. And I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with my young daughters who have told me that they and their friends are wondering if their generation will ever be able to own a home. And that's exactly why we are taking this action today to commit to a multiple properties speculation tax to put young families on a level playing field to be able to afford the home of their dreams. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. We'll now start with any questions, starting with questions from the floor.
Hi, Mike. In 2018, the PCs promised a 20% middle-class income tax cut, costing about $2.26 billion a year starting in year 3. The pandemic changed their follow-through on that, but should they continue to look forward to something like that?
Well, you know what? Doug Ford has not fulfilled a number of campaign promises when it comes to people's affordability concerns. The Ontario Greens, we are committed to not raising taxes on middle-class incomes. And we are committed to making investments in improving access to affordable public services that address people's affordability concerns, starting with addressing the housing affordability crisis, committing to making mental health services available under OHIP, and addressing the fuel price concerns that families have by cutting transit fares in half immediately and helping make electric vehicles affordable for the average person so they can save money by getting the pumps out of their lives. That's how we can address the affordability concerns that people are facing in this province.
If I could follow up just by asking if you could clarify if you think that services would get cut with an income tax cut, and if it should actually go forward, and if I could also add, it doesn't look like the budget is, well, we know the budget's not going to be passed. I'm just wondering what you think of that process.
Well, first of all, the Ontario Greens will always put people before politics. I think it's just wrong and irresponsible that the Ford government is using the budget to advance their own political interests instead of improving the lives of Ontarians. I can't tell you how many nonprofit and social service agencies that do vital work for people in our communities who now are 1 month into the new fiscal year and don't even know what their budgets are. And so how do they hire staff and plan to deliver the services Ontarians want and need? Which brings me to the second point of your question is now is not the time for austerity. People who are experiencing surgical wait times want to see healthcare capacity increased. Families worried about the learning gap that their children have experienced during the pandemic want to see lower class sizes in our schools. The 28,000 young people on a wait list to access mental health services want those services to be available in 30 days, not 2.5 years. And they want it to be affordable and accessible through OHIP. Children with autism are still waiting for this government to deliver the services their families need. The list goes on and on. Now is the time to fix the cracks in the foundations of our systems of care that Ontarians so desperately need. And we need to have the province to have the fiscal resources to deliver on that, which is why I'm proud to say I'm the only MPP in the entire Ontario legislature to vote against Doug Ford's license plate sticker gimmick, because Ontario Greens are here to earn your vote, not buy your vote.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor?
One more, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, when it comes to the speculation that you're talking about with this policy, would you be targeting only corporations, or is this to maybe a private citizen who has multiple homes?
Yeah, so just to be very clear, it's for new home purchases that would include single family homes, duplexes, and condominium units. And it would apply to individuals and corporations. I mean, we've seen far too many examples now of people, especially deep-pocketed corporations, buying multiple single-family homes, essentially pricing young families out of the housing market. Ontario Greens believe housing should be for people, not speculators.
Thank you. We'll now go to any Zoom questions. So over to you, Jess.
Okay, we will now take questions online. If you have a question, please use the raise hand function and I will call on you to unmute. First question comes from Lisa Zing.
Hi there, Mike. Just a quick question on this announcement. You talk about individuals as well as corporations. So what about those mom and pop investors who say have been a source of housing for renters like students? Won't this plan remove them from the market, which would effectively allow those wealthy corporations who can afford that tax to buy up even more property?
No, absolutely not. So first of all, it doesn't apply to existing ownership, and it doesn't apply to purpose-built rental. We absolutely need more purpose-built rental housing available in Ontario. As a matter of fact, we've made a commitment to to put funding on the table to support nonprofit, co-op, and social housing providers to build 160,000 affordable rental spaces in Ontario over the next decade. So this is applying to those companies and, quite frankly, those individuals who have the financial means to buy multiple properties, which is helping to fuel and drive up the speculation in the market, which is freezing out young families and first-time home buyers. So let's put them on a level playing field by reducing the speculation that is currently happening in the housing market.
And a follow-up question as well. Some experts are saying, this will help young families, professionals to a certain extent, but it still doesn't help those people who can't afford to get into the market in the first place.
Yeah, so this is one vitally important tool of a whole suite of tools that are part of the Ontario Greens housing affordability strategy, a strategy that some have described as a masterclass plan in delivering the solutions that people need. A critical component of our strategy is to increase housing supply and housing choices for those young families and professionals seeking home ownership. And that includes zoning changes that make it as of right to build duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, laneway housing, tiny homes, secondary suites, so we can quickly ramp up housing supply within our existing built communities and create more housing choices and options for homeowners, and to provide, in the case of secondary suites and laneway housing and other forms of on-site rental, a income stream to help those home buyers be able to afford their mortgages. So this tool around speculation is one of many tools that are part of the Ontario Greens housing strategy. The challenge we're facing right now is that we need decisive government action to put first-time home buyers on a level playing field so they're not having to compete against particularly deep-pocketed corporations that are buying up a significant amount of our single-family housing stock.
Okay, thank you. Next question comes from John McGrath.
Good morning, Mike. Maybe at the risk of asking a stupid question, why would this apply to the third purchase of a single family home and not to the second purchase?
That's a good question, John Michael. And I think it's an acknowledgement of one, there are a significant number of Ontarians who would like to own a home and a cottage. And there are individuals who would like to be able to, have a rental property. And so it's looking at acknowledging that and applying it to the third home and beyond. And we would consult with economists and housing market experts around having a progressive component to the speculation tax that would increase over time for people who are buying additional multiple properties, like 10 or more, for example.
And if this is already a problem with the concentration of ownership in Ontario's market as it exists today, why you're not announcing anything today that would apply to people who already own large portfolios of real estate? Why aren't you proposing to bring anything to perhaps break up some of that ownership or force people to sell?
Yeah, well, first of all, another component, that's a good question. Thank you. Another component of our housing affordability strategy is to bring in a vacant homes tax, which would create an incentive for people who have multiple properties and are leaving them vacant to either put them on the rental market so we have more rental supply, and or it would give it an incentive for them to sell those homes into the marketplace. As you probably know, non-primary residence properties are subject to capital gains tax, and we certainly support that and would be open to having conversations with the federal government around adjusting whether that capital gains tax should be increased or not.
Okay, thank you. A reminder to please use the raise hand function if you have a question. Okay, it looks like there are no more questions. Back to you, Mike.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And I'm proud of the leadership that the Ontario Greens have put forward in addressing the housing affordability crisis. We first released our detailed plan in June of last year. Many have called it a masterclass plan in delivering the solutions that Ontarians need. In that plan, we said that we would address speculation, not only non-resident speculation, but resident speculation in the housing market. And today is an important announcement in addressing that. So once again, we can put first-time home buyers on a level playing field, and so that we can start providing hope to a young generation who's wondering if they'll ever be able to afford a home. So thank you for joining us today.